Todd was playing mono black in the Invitational in the standard portion, and as you said, did not have any success doing so. He switched over to Esper Control. Looks like he's doing just fine now, sitting at 7-1. Going to be playing against a Black Devotion deck. David Bauer sitting at 7-1 as well, a player who has had a lot of open series success himself.
And Todd and I grabbed dinner Thursday night, and I told him that if I were being objective and suggesting a deck for this tournament, it would be Esper Control. Yep. I would believe it's the best position deck in Standard right now. So I think Todd was debating between Esper and Mono Black, and based on his poor performance in the Invitational, I'm sure that was the tiebreaker for what he wanted to do in the Standard Open today.
Well, we will begin here with a Temple of Malady from David Bauer. He's going to scry, put that card to the bottom of his deck. Todd is going to take a draw. He's going to do some scrying as well with a Temple of Deceit. Round 9 of 10, game number 1, underway.
David Bauer with a pretty traditional green splash here, 3 copies of Abrupt Decay and 1 copy of Vraska the Unseen, which we, 1 copy or 0 copies in the main deck, and then 1 or 2 in the sideboard is pretty common.
Par for the course. This is a Thoughtseize. Take a look at Natherling, along with a Detention Sphere, a Doomblade, a Supreme Verdict, and a couple of lands. And looks like 2 Temple of Enlightenments and a Plains.
Curious what Bauer wants to do here. Of course, he'll be ignoring the Doomblade. The 2 removal spells are significant in Todd's hand, but the 1 Aetherling, a significant part of Todd's game plan against Black Devotion. David's not going to take it, but that Aetherling is a big part of his game plan, although maybe he takes it now.
Yeah, and there it does go. So a second Thoughtseize there from Bauer, clearing out some of Anderson's tools. Sphinx's Revelation is the draw. That's a pretty good one. Temple of Enlightenment, take a look. Anderson going to put that top card to the bottom before passing it back over to Bauer, who will take a draw. You have to imagine he has the connections if he took the Sphere, and he certainly does.
Black Devotion, I think, against Esper and Blue-White Control, a bit of an underdog game 1. The problem being the amount of removal they have, and really only Underworld Connections is a way to push through that. But Bauer's opening hand, 2 copies of Thoughtseize and Underworld Connections, the perfect start against Esper Control.
Going to activate the connections to draw a card. It's a copy, it looks like, of Abrupt Decay. He's got 2 of those in his hand right now. Going to drop down a Guildgate before passing the turn back over to Anderson, who will draw a card. We'll see what he can find. It is an island here. He will put that into play. Simply pass the turn back. No Jace and no reason to cast a Supreme Verdict, so Bauer will take a draw. It's a Swamp. He's going to activate connections again. Down to 14 he goes. We'll see what card he can find here, and that is a Desecration Demon. That'll probably be the first threat that we see this game.
A good draw here for Bauer. He doesn't want to give Todd all the time in the world because of the threat of Planeswalkers and especially Sphinx's Revelation, so he needs to get something going.
Ultimate Price is going to take care of that Desecration Demon. Anderson just going to play a Plains before passing the turn back. Does have a Dissolve in his hand, also has that Revelation. We'll see if he wants to Revelate for 2 or maybe hold out for another couple of lands here.
Given how far behind he is in the resource battle, I think he's going to want to try to squeeze a little bit more out of this Revelation than just for 2. Especially if Bauer commits something to the board this turn, it's a good opportunity for Todd to use Dissolve and try to find another land drop.
Well, taking care of the 3rd Thoughtseize isn't a bad place for Dissolve as well. He leaves that card on top immediately to take care of the Thoughtseize with the Scry. So this will be interesting. I imagine this will probably be a land, you think?
Or a Jace.
Yeah. So Todd going to shuffle between those cards, and he's going to add 1 to his hand. It's a Detention Sphere.
Sure, also reasonable.
And he's just going to Revelate now. So this is going to be a main phase Rev. 2 cards coming. Wants to make sure he hits his land drop. Looks like he found 2 lands, and they're both going to be temples. So Temple of Deceit. Anderson going to take a look at the top card of the deck. That card's going to go to the bottom before passing it back over to Bauer. Still over there with his Underworld Connections. No Mutavault among those lands, though.
And Todd showing a good understanding of the matchup here. I think a lot of people's instinct would have been, why don't you just put Detention Sphere on the table? Bauer with, not really casting anything. Reasonable to expect he has at least 1 copy of Abrupt Decay in his hand, so Todd would rather rev there and try to set up multiple Detention Spheres or just other stuff to do in the face of Bauer's Abrupt Decay.
A Gray Merchant of Asphodel is going to come into play. Anderson's going to go down to 18. Bauer's going to gain a little bit of life back from all these connections and Thoughtseizes. He'll play an Overgrown Tomb and then pass the turn back. Anderson is going to play a Temple. Full screen, please. Now he's going to play a D-Sphere. We're passing the turn back over to Bauer. Another Gray Merchant's going to show up here. You see Anderson's hand. He's got that dead Doomblade in his hand for the most part, assuming a Mutavault ever does show up. Abrupt Decay, of course, taking care of that Detention Sphere. Underworld Connections back on the table and active.
And if you want to know why people moved to a green splash and Black Devotion once Temple of Malady became available, you're seeing it right now. This matchup is so much different with David Bauer having access to main deck enchantment removal to fight Detention Sphere.
Now, this is a second Gray Merchant now. So this one's going to be for 6, I imagine. 6 is a lot. Anderson's life total is dwindling. That is the supreme verdict. Got to clean those up.
Yeah, can't take too many more hits like this. And Todd picked up Sphinx's Revelation this turn, so if he's able to untap and get to that next turn, he might be able to start powering himself back into the game.
Well, 3 Thoughtseize are gone, so you have to at least imagine that a 4th one won't come off. No guarantee of that, of course, but there's your Temple of Malady. Going to put a top card down to the bottom. Bauer's going to activate his Underworld Connections. Time to take a draw. See what he finds. It's a Desecration Demon, not a bad one.
Well, Todd does have an answer ready in ultimate price, and so if Bauer can't find anything else to add to the table this turn, Todd's going to have a really good window to resolve a large Sphinx's Revelation.
Well, there is a Desecration Demon, and that's an ultimate price to take care of that. Anderson playing 2 of those in his main deck. He will untap. He draws an island. He'll pass the turn. I imagine he'll be revving here in just a moment as Bauer is going to untap, take a draw. It's a swamp for him.
And for as many Thoughtseizes and removal spells as Bauer's found, really threat-light draw, and is giving Todd an opportunity here to resolve a large Sphinx's Revelation.
This is what you said about game 1. I mean, this is they do have some bad draws and bad cards that they can run into. Hero's Downfall, for example, not looking very good here.
Well, the black-green shorts it up a little bit because Abrupt Decay replaces something along the lines of Bile Blight or Ultimate Price or what have you, and Abrupt Decay is great against Esper and blue-white builds.
A rev for 5 for Anderson. 5 life, but more importantly, 5 new cards here in his hand. You see a Doomblade. There's also Dissolve hanging out over there. He's got pretty good control of this game now. Has to be a little wary, again, of that Underworld Connections. Finding Bauer some more gas. As Anderson's going to put the top card to the bottom from Temple to see it simply pass the turn back. You see his life total there at 11.
It was a fairly anemic Revelation, though. 4 lands and a Dissolve. Yeah. So not the haymakers that Todd was looking for.
Bauer going to activate Connections again. It goes down to 22. Does have a Thoughtseize. That's the 4th one. No more of those. See if he's trying to clear the path for anything specific. And it looks like Anderson says, I'm just going to dissolve this because I don't have much else. Put the top card to the bottom. Here's an attack for 2. Anderson goes down to 9. So yeah, as you mentioned, Todd's hand, even though he read for 5, nothing great there. Elspeth's not a bad draw.
Yeah, I believe Bauer is at the ready with a Hero's Downfall here, which takes some of the sting out of this Elspeth, but at least it's a high-impact draw for Todd.
Well, 3 soldiers showing up to the party. And you see Anderson's hand. Doesn't have a lot. Now, the tough thing here for Todd is that his Aetherling is gone from that earlier Thoughtseize. So the ways he has to win the game are simply Elspeth and a couple copies of Mutavault. That's it.
It's going to be a challenge, although Elspeth is certainly capable of winning a game against Black Devotion.
Absolutely. Bauer does Hero's Downfall that Elspeth, draws a copy of Mutavault for the turn. Again, no more Thoughtseizes headed Anderson's way. Those are all gone from this game. Bauer's going to activate Connections again. He draws a Swamp for the turn.
Bauer's draw has been really odd this game. He's found 3 and 4 copies of a lot of his cards and 0 copies of other of his cards.
A little bit strange. I do agree.
There's 4 Lifebane zombies in this man's deck, for example.
4 Pack Rats as well.
4 Pack
Rats actually pretty good on this board.
But he's found a whole bunch of Gray Merchants and Thoughtseizes, so.
It's time for a gang block here from Anderson. I think Todd deciding if he wants to block with all of the soldiers or not. Weighing the consequences, and it looks like he may consider doing that. Wondering how many cards you have.
It feels like a freebie to me because if Todd has something that can kill, if David has something that kills the Mutavault, then blocking with the 3rd creature doesn't really change anything.
And so he's going to put the blockers like this. Now Abrupt Decay can actually blow this up a little bit to take care of a soldier token. A little bit surprised. Yeah, I agree with you.
I'm not sure what card Todd is playing around by not committing the 3rd.
Yeah,
that's
how I feel. So now those are going to bite the dust. Todd, I think, should still have 1 soldier token left because you deal 2 to the Mutavault.
Correct.
Yeah, so I think there should be 1 soldier token left. We'll make sure that this is actually the appropriate game state here. You Abrupt Decay 1, you deal 2 to the Mutavault. And the other one should be left on the table. So you should stop the match and make sure that is appropriate. Okay. So it looks like everything is kosher. Both players agreeing on the game state here.
And Bauer finally finds a Pack Rat, which will allow him to convert a lot of these dead draws into a major threat.
It's about time.
Yeah.
That's how I feel. This is like the one card that can actually kind of take over the game at this point. Now here comes a Mutavault. That's a Doomblade. Finally, Todd does get to use that.
A small victory for Todd.
The smallest of victories. Bauer going to play a land. have to imagine he's going to deploy the rat because he can make 2 more. So there is Pack Rat. Anderson's going to draw. He's at 7. He's pretty low. Draws a copy of Jace. Looks like he goes reaching for the soldier. I don't think that's coming in, though. There's an attack.
Well, it's a free point, and if Bauer wants to make a rat, that's an extra card that gets swept away by the Supreme Verdict.
Yeah. So there is your Supreme Verdict. That'll clear that up. Then Jace can come after. So now there's a Jace.
Imagine Todd will minus here on this empty board.
Yeah, nothing to fear. No Mutavault out there. Another Jace, and Azorius Charm, and an Attention Sphere. Not bad. And you have to imagine that your opponent, well, I guess not anymore. I would say you have to imagine your opponent has an Abrupt Decay in their hand, but Bauer's already cast 2.
Yeah, it's not necessarily there.
So there's the split. D-Sphere versus. Tough to bats of a Jace, yeah.
And Azorius Charm. Right now, Todd's just trying to find another Revelation or something like Elspeth, so every cantrip's valuable.
Anderson will just play an island past the turn back here. Bauer draws another copy of Underworld Connections. Looks like he can move to 3 cards turn territory here. Gonna activate the first one. Finds a copy of Pack Rat yet again.
That's a really important draw here for Bauer. I think he was at some risk of this game slipping away from him if he didn't add any more pressure to his board. And in fact, he's still in some trouble, but a Pack Rat gives him something very threatening to do.
Decisions for the Black-Green Devotion player. See him take a look at Anderson's graveyard. Maybe it's time for another connections. Yeah, it looks like it is, the way he slides his lands over. So second connection is going to show up for Bauer now. He will activate that connections. Take a draw. Didn't quite make it out.
I believe another copy. Oh, it's a Lifebane Zombie.
Sure. You said he had 4 of those. This is the first one. Oh, so there's that. Take a look. Bauer knew 2 of those. Now he knows all 3. The Plains was the mystery card. But you don't get any of those with Lifebane Zombie.
And I'm assuming there are 0 copies of Elixir in Todd's list.
That's not his style. No Elixir here.
So he's down to basically Mutavaults and 2 Elspeths as a way to win. And I suppose Jace Ultimates as well.
Yeah, that's it. He's going to have to work for it.
Yeah.
No free ones with Aetherling here. Anderson looking at Azorius Charm. No interest in the cycle. May have to use that on the lifelink mode, perhaps. Draws a copy of Thoughtseize here. Going to cash in Jace. This is where he'll start. 3 cards coming. Temple of Silence, Temple of Deceit, and an Elspeth.
This will probably be a pretty straightforward split.
Yeah, it was a pretty straightforward take as well. Lands go to the bottom. Elspeth goes to the grip. Maybe Todd will try to clear the path here with Thoughtseize.
I don't know. His life is taxed right now in a pretty major way. It's risky to Thoughtseize that turns the Lifebane Zombie into a 2-turn clock. I understand he has Azorius Charm to reset for 1 turn. Bauer's going to find that copy and other things to do with those 2 Underworld connections. So Todd may just have to give up on that Thoughtseize. Not for sure. There's still some merit in casting it, but the 2 damage here is very significant.
3 Grave Merchants gone from the deck here for Bauer as well. Anderson's going to mess around with that mana, figure out exactly what he does want to do here. Again, could clear the way with Thoughtseize, but paying the 2 life in this situation may be detrimental.
It's been very impressive thus far watching Todd's pace of play. He's played an extremely fast game. Definitely someone who's conscious of the clock, playing a deck as slow as Esper Control can be.
4 mana. Looks like he's going to start with a Jace. Tick this down. Hit 1 and 2 and 3. Dissolve, Verdict, and a Hallowed Fountain are the cards you're looking at right now. It's almost like Supreme Verdict is worth trading for the Lifebane Zombie.
Well, it depends how many Supreme Verdicts Todd has left. He may not be able to let this go that liberally.
Wants the counterspell on the land. Verdict will go to the bottom. Will we see a Thoughtseize? We are. Take a look at Bauer's script. Does he have a response is the question. The answer is no. Abrupt Decay, Pack Rat. Looks like Ultimate Price.
Yeah, 1 copy
Perhaps,
of Ultimate Price in his main deck.
So Pack Rat's going to bite the dust.
This is the problem that Black Devotion has in the matchup game 1. Even with Underworld Connections running the whole time, he's still glutted on dead cards a fair bit.
Anderson is just going to pass the turn back over to Bauer. Bauer will take a draw. It's a swamp, but he does have 2 Underworld Connections in his deck. Excuse me, in play. 2 activate, so that's 1. Devour Flesh. This is 2. And that looks like another copy of Connections. He's been connecting the entire game, but can he win?
But Todd's revelations and some timely tricks and the number of dead cards Bauer has in his deck has allowed Todd to keep pace, even though David's drawn a ton of extra cards for game one.
Pretty good place to start. Lifebane Zombie going to Azorius Charm that right back. Bauer's going to organize the mana. That's a Connections. Todd is actually considering countering this.
It's more, I believe it may be more of a tempo play if he considers doing it. Clearly, the difference between 3 cards and 4 cards is not that significant. But if he does, it's just to prevent Lifebane Zombie from coming back this turn.
May actually just counter Lifebane Zombie too.
Also possible.
Bauer has not played a land yet this turn. I think the card Todd has me most scared of is that 4th copy of Grey Merchant of Asphodel. There's Lifebane Zombie. Will Anderson counter this one?
And Todd may have this Dissolve in his hand and will not commit it to anything other than stopping Grey Merchant.
Yep.
The problem is that he doesn't have an immediate answer to this Lifebane Zombie. Elspeth provides no defense.
Todd taking a look at everything there. Do I counter this or do I save? Tough to say. I don't know if you can't counter the spell.
It does open himself up to some pretty dangerous draws from David, especially that Grey Merchant. And he's looking at a bunch of cards per turn.
All right, he's going to go with the Dissolve. He's going to take care of that. Top puts top card of his deck to the bottom very quickly. Bauer is just going to pass the turn back, so the door is open here. And to be fair, if Anderson does find another copy of Sphinx Revelation, things are going pretty well. There's a Hallowed Fountain. Cashing in the Jace. Top card, Verdict, Jace, Thoughtseize.
This has to be Jace first. I mean, right now it's a race for Bauer to find some sort of meaningful threat or his Grey Merchant before Todd finds a Revelation.
Anderson does have 4 copies of Dissolve in his deck. He has not used all of them just yet.
If this Jace was Divination, I would still split Divination against. So it has to be like this.
Yeah, that's what I think too. Anderson, now he's worried. Do I take the Verdict and the Thoughtseize? Or do I take Jace and look for more cards?
Now that he has no protection against the Grey Merchant left in Bauer's deck, those 2 cards don't even provide a lot of defense. What does Supreme Verdict answer that the Elspeth does not? It's basically just Lifebane Zombie. Everything else is contained. I suppose Pack Rat is problematic given the number of cards that Bauer has in his hand.
Maybe it's time for Jace now. Take it down. A couple more cards. Island, Doomblade, Temple of Enlightenment. Temple's got to be the best of the bunch there.
Again, yeah, just searching for Sphinx's Revelation. The Doomblade may matter a little bit if Bauer finds a Mutavault, but still. Todd has Elspeth in his hand to keep that on lock.
Bauer going to take a look at his hand. Both these players playing at a pretty good pace, honestly, given the matchup and how many things are happening. There's your split. There's your Temple. We think. And now we are confirmed.
Todd's pace of play has been really, really impressive so far.
No time to mess around. There's Temple, gonna scry. Yeah, that's not Revelation, that goes to the bottom. And enough mana to cast an Elspeth. So, up to 5, 1 and 2 and 3. And right now, for Anderson, he has to hope there's no Grey Merchant here for Bauer. Bauer's gonna untap, he's gonna get 4 looks at it. First draw is a Devour Flesh, that's not it. How about the second?
Even Hero's Downfall presents some problems for Todd here because he may just run out of ways to win.
Vraska's not bad either.
Not shabby. That's a one of in Bauer's list here. This is a good spot to draw it.
But that is not the win right now. So Bauer is going to activate Connections again. How about that third draw? That is a Lifebane Zombie. Also not shabby.
Yeah, these are all cards that still threaten Todd even with his Planeswalkers in play.
And the fourth is a Hero's Downfall. Also not shabby, but none of them are a Grey Merchant to win the game right now. So Anderson will at least get one more turn.
These are resources to play cleanup with. Though, keep in mind, Bauer, you know, his life total is not a total free roll in this matchup right now. He's at 10. He's likely to get hit next turn down to 7. And he can only activate these connections so many more times.
There's his land for the turn. Starts with a swamp. Time for some mana to be tapped. The Unseen. That is Vraska. Looks like we'll probably see a Vindicate from that Planeswalker. Can take down Elspeth or Jace.
And we're starting to enter the stage of the game here now with Bauer finding these cards. That Sphinx's Revelation may not even help Todd anymore because he doesn't have enough ways left in his deck to win the game.
Yeah. Now that's very real. Hero's Downfall. See ya. Get out of here, Elspeth. With no elixir, too.
Yeah.
He's just got to use what he draws.
He has his 3 tokens in play. He has Jace that he can go ultimate with. He has 1 remaining Elspeth. That is it. And I would imagine he's behind on cards in terms of the decking race.
Oh, yeah.
And Bauer can likely, I mean, it's not clear Bauer's drawn a lot of cards himself, but also David over a long enough span of time can just find ways to kill Todd.
Todd going to cash in Jace. Hit 1, 2, and 3. There's a Rev. Rev's on its own. You know he's going to take it. And now Todd's going to count the cards in his deck, see exactly how much he can rev for. Hopefully we can get a count for you guys. Know exactly how many cards are left in the deck, since it looks like that information is public among both players now. Anderson's going to say, I'm attacking you. And 22 cards, so enough to work with.
Yeah.
1 more Elspeth, and I believe 1 more Mutavault in there. So Todd's going to separate that mana. You see 4, 8, 9, 10, 11 is how much the rev could be for. Going to pass the turn back over to Bauer. Bauer still gets some looks at this.
Yep.
Grey Merchant may not be lethal now. And it was the top card of the deck. So David Bauer's got some work to do because he knows there's a revelation on the way here for Todd. It will be for 11 presumably, which will put him up to 16. You count the devotion in play. 2, 4, 6, 7, 8, 9. Not going to kill him.
And the other point of concern here is that if Bauer, plays the Grey Merchant here, it draws in cards with connections trying to set up a lethal Grey Merchant, Todd can rev for less than the maximum, searching for a dissolve, and potentially kill him all the way back with the soldier tokens. So we'll see what Bauer does momentarily here. Was that meant for us?
There's a Temple. Little Scry. That one goes to the bottom real quick. No interest in that card. Bauer, again, looking at the graveyard, wants to make sure, because he can get all the information. He can put an idea. He can get an idea of what's left in Todd's deck in this situation. There's Lifebane Zombie. Well, take a look at this Revelation of Lands you know about. That doesn't change anything. How about this Grey Merchant? 2, 4, 6, 8, 9, 10, 11. And Todd's going to count it too. As a player who has qualified for multiple Pro Tours with Black Devotion, he knows how this works.
Yeah. And I'm curious how knowledgeable Bauer is about the circumstances. There's a lot of times where you get so caught up in fighting, like playing the right kind of technical magic, that you lose track of things like, my opponent may not have that many ways left in their deck to win. Can I just turtle up, fight over their 1 last remaining kill condition, and win the game that way?
They can never beat me.
Right.
You could end up decking him, for example.
It's easy to get into this mentality of, oh, I've got to beat him through this revelation. That isn't necessarily the case.
The other thing, too, I think one thing that we didn't even weigh into this is that as Bauer, you're going to see Todd gain a bunch of life here, and there will be a drain. But I think more importantly, Bauer's going to gain a bunch of life.
Yeah.
I think that's the big deal here, is that it's going to be really hard for Todd to kill him.
He has to find Elspeth very quickly. Back it up,
which he did do.
And has backup with Dissolve. That's another important thing, because he probably can't play Elspeth until there's some counterspell protection. Defend himself against the creatures in play.
He found another Rev, but that one doesn't matter. So Anderson's going to draw a card. It's a Temple of Silence. And now he's got to figure out how to win it.
And you may see this game get to the spot where, Bauer just hangs back on defense with the Grey Merchant. Just says, this is going to block your tokens.
Yeah, why attack?
Yeah.
Why bother?
I'm sure he'll attack with the Lifebane Zombie, because that potentially threatens Todd, but...
Anderson does have the Elspeth. Not sure if he has a Dissolve hang out over there. There's an Azorius Charm, which could play a role here as well. There's also a detention sphere, banishing light. Todd has a lot of mana at his disposal too, so now he's got to figure out how to carve out this turn, which will lead to how to carve out future turns.
And also, does he have enough resources left to protect his one way to win? And Todd's got to be careful with his mana. The funny thing about all this is, I'm sure Todd has plenty of things to do with all of his mana.
Mm-hmm. Decisions. He's just got to make sure he carves it out right. Looks like he might do some attacking here. Maybe reset things with a verdict if he has one of those. Looks like these are just going right at him.
Yeah.
He's got to work down 17 life. That's so much. Yeah, he's going to dig through the hand. Assuming he has a verdict.
There doesn't appear to be a verdict.
Oh, boy. Oh, boy. I think he mislooked at it.
I think he must have just assumed there was one there.
Yeah.
But by both players' body language, I mean, it was one of those spots where it's like, yeah, the cards are face up.
Yeah.
You have a supreme verdict, I'll block.
Oh, maybe not. Now Todd's got to recount the mana. There's a sphere. That's number one. Let's see what this is going to go after. This is going to go after Life Pain Zombie. That one's causing too much trouble. I'd be surprised if Bauer doesn't have an Abrupt Decay in his hand, though. I think he does.
That's the problem here is that, you know, Todd can't really deploy Elspeth in the face of Vraska. So he has to remove that from the table to be able to get Elspeth online.
Mm-hmm.
And then an Abrupt Decay is a disaster.
So this is another Detention Sphere. We'll see what this is targeting here in just a moment. He's going to say, I want all of your connections now. A little surprised to see him not maybe go after Vraska there, but he does have a Banishing Light. So there those go. Next up is it B-Light time? Yeah, I mean, a lot of options, man.
Yeah.
A lot of options. And he's got to try to craft out a game plan to actually win. So there goes that. And now, as he goes reaching for mana, this is 4. Maybe not.
I just don't know how Todd's supposed to win this now.
Me either.
If he Supreme Verdicts, if he finds a Supreme Verdict, then he can Supreme Verdict, deploy Elspeth, make some tokens, know that Vraska is going to be unlocked and kill it, and then hope that the 3 tokens are enough to win the game. But that's asking a lot.
And it's the removal spell deck? Yeah.
Yeah.
It is.
And Bauer's got 5 cards in his hand. What do you think some of them are? Probably some Devour Fleshes
Yep.
and Ultimate Prices and so forth.
Could even Devour Flesh himself. Gain a little bit of life if he needs to.
Yeah.
One card that Anderson can't cast now, most likely, is Sphinx's Revelation. I don't think he can afford to draw too many more cards. And now he's got to figure out maybe what to discard if he just jams Elspeth and crosses his fingers. Presumably, he'd like to play Elspeth with Dissolve up. And he's just going to discard and pass.
I think Todd knows he can't just throw Elspeth out there. That's a recipe that leads to immediate death.
Bauer's going to draw a card. It's a copy of Temple of Malady. He's going to play that. It's time to scry. We'll take a look at the top card. You see his hand. He's got a Pack Rat, a couple copies of Devour Flesh, but the most important card over there is Abrupt Decay. That can take care of a Detention Sphere, depending on if he wants his Underworld Connections back or if he wants his Vraska back. Heck, even a Life Bane Zombie.
Yeah. I think that Bauer is on some sort of decking plan here.
That's a Decay. We'll see which one of those Oblivion Ring-esque effects, and I had a feeling it might be that one, so Vraska's going to come back.
This begins the chain.
So this will tick down. Give me these connections back. Thank you much.
Don't mind if I do.
Yep, I like to keep drawing some cards. Now let's see how Bauer wants to move. Again, his hand right now is removal spells, a Mutavault, and a Pack Rat. He'll start by adding a card, going down to 12 to do so. That's a copy of Bile Blight. That's good right now.
Bile Blight's great. I mean, again, Todd has to win through with an Elspeth here.
That's an attack for 2. Anderson's going to go down to 3.
Certainly can Azorius Charm that one.
Yep. Activate, draw a card. Down to 11 goes Bauer. It's a Lifebane Zombie. That can provide the last 3, presumably, even though there is an Azorius Charm over there. Here's the hand. Dissolve, Azorius Charm, Rev, Elspeth, Jace, couple of lands. Bauer will record all that information. You see the time. Got about 20 minutes almost in the match.
And this is a big one for Bauer to win because the Black Devotion matchup it's much better against Esper post board. So stealing game 1, putting Todd under the gun to win 2 games very quickly, when Bauer will be a favorite in the post board games, is very challenging.
Great spot to be in. Bauer surveying the board. All right, let's activate again. Down to 10. Take a draw. A boring old guild gate is what he's found. So decisions here. Time to take a look at the graveyard. Make sure he knows exactly what's going on. He knows Anderson's hand. He now knows the graveyard, so you can imagine he can figure out what's the rest of the deck. Now here's a baby Rev that Todd can afford to fire off. This will be for 3 cards. Anderson going to go up to 6. Going to untap a whole mass of lands. Time to take a draw. Elspeth we know about. Verdict? Do we like that card here?
It seems like an important piece of puzzle because the Gray Merchant's problematic. Todd, I don't think it really has much in the way of removal spells left to handle it, and he can't Azorius Charm it, so it is a little annoying. And the Lifebane Zombie is annoying too. I mean, that's a potentially lethal threat as well that Todd can't really block, even if he's able to stick Elspeth.
Devour Flesh. These are actually going to be turned on now, which is crazy. So that goes away. Anderson's going to go up to 7.
And it's possible that both of these were going after Vraska, which was why.
Yeah, it wouldn't be much of a surprise.
Moved. Yep.
And Devour Flesh number 2. Looks like Anderson's going to go up to 8. There's the Supreme Verdict. Let's clean it up. So that'll resolve. Is it time for Elspeth yet? Well, it looks like a yes to me. So there is the Sun's Champion. Elevator is going up. 3 soldier tokens incoming. Anderson with 5 mana. Temple. Yes. Looking. Maybe. No. To the bottom. Pass with Dissolve. And Azorius Charm up. Hero's Downfall the draw. Probably going to have a fight over that in a second.
Though to Todd's credit, he's done a really excellent job getting the game even to this point. He couldn't deploy Elspeth until Vraska was unlocked, basically. As long as it was under the detention sphere, the risk of David using Abrupt Decay on the detention sphere, getting back Vraska, and immediately killing Elspeth was just too high. But he was able to make it juicy enough for Bauer to get his Vraska back such that he could deploy the Elspeth.
See an activation of the Underworld Connections, netted David a Desecration Demon, which is now in play. Bauer also going to put Pack Rat in play. Both these players can virtually cast every single card in their hand.
Yeah.
And pass the turn back over to Anderson, who's going to untap those lands. Time to draw. He put the top card on the bottom, so this is a mystery. It's a Doomblade. That's important. And the reason that's important because that can counter 1/2 of a Bile Blight. So a Pack Rat's going to be made. A bunch of stuff is going to bite the dust. There may be a verdict incoming here.
Would assume so.
So clear ball the garbage. Elspeth, is it time for you? It is. 3 soldiers coming.
Although Bauer has successfully protected Vraska to the point where now we can finish off Elspeth next turn.
There's a Jace. I think this elevator might go up. Yep. We might be on maybe Jace Ultimate Plan. There's your 3 soldier tokens.
I don't think there's any cards he can find that are significant.
Not on his deck.
Right.
But Bauer's, yes. Because I think he might be able to find a Pack Rat in Bauer's deck and try to kill him with that. Todd going to count the cards in his deck. Looks like maybe 5 or 6, not a lot.
Yeah.
So Bauer's going to keep drawing cards and taking damage. Pack rat among them. You see his hand. There's a Mutavault there as well. 3 mana here. Hero's Downfall is going to go after. Looks like maybe Elspeth. You have to imagine there's going to be a counterspell here. Maybe, maybe not, though. It's hard to say, I guess.
It depends how Todd thinks he can win the game from here. Is Jace Ultimate realistic? Is decking David realistic?
Bauer doesn't have a lot of cards left in his deck. Look like he's under 10. Both these players have just been rushing through their deck.
It's pretty crazy because both players need to keep drawing cards to keep up with the other person, but both players are at risk of getting decked.
Dissolve does take care of that. Todd scries the top card to the bottom. Desecration Demon in the draw here for Bauer. Bye-bye Elspeth via Vraska. That one of Vraska paying huge dividends. Here's 4 mana. This is a Desecration Demon. There's a Mutavault. I think this is about to be a pack, right? You see him counting the cards. Todd doing the same.
Yeah.
These guys are wild.
Well, you know, the upshot of all of this is basically Bauer just needs to make sure that he pressures Jace enough to not allow Jace to go ultimate. That's really the only conceivable way for Todd to win at this point now that all 3 of his Elspeths are gone.
Time to draw. Godless Shrine. And he's got to concede the game. David Bauer's going to win game 1 here over Todd Anderson in a marathon affair. Black-Green Devotion up a game over Esper Control. And we said that Bauer's got to be able to steal game 1. He did it, and things get tougher now.
It's brutal there because Todd held on for as long as possible, even though the game was looking bad. There was still a small chance he was able to win that game. I would say at the 22, 21 minute mark, things started to look bleak. So it was possible enough that he was compelled to keep playing. But now 7 or so critical minutes have gone off the clock, and it's not clear that Todd has enough time to win.
Take a look at the sideboards here. See if Todd can turn up the heat. He's got 2 Pithing Needles, 2 Negates, a Dispel, 2 Gainsay, a Doomblade, 3 Dark Betrayals, a Jace Memory Adept, 2 Sin Collectors, and a Thought Seeds. What we have seen, at least in the Invitational, a lot of players had Nightfall Spectre to turn up the heat with, but not here for Anderson.
No, I think you're going to see the Thoughtseize, the 2 Sin Collectors, the 3 Dark Betrayals. Jace Memory Adept is a critical card here in the matchup for Todd. This is something that gives him the potential to win very quickly. It's by far his fastest win condition. So that gives him some shot, although protecting a Planeswalker from attackers and Hero's Downfall is going to be a bit of a challenge. You may see Negate come in as well. The Pithing Needles for Underworld connections and for Erebos, which you could pretty safely assume are in David's deck.
Oh, well, you can confirm that as you have that in front of you.
2 Doomblades, a Hero's Downfall, a Drown in Sorrow, 3 Staff of the Death Magus, 3 copies of Duress, a Bile Blight, 2 copies of Erebos, God of the Dead, 2 Golgari Charms. 2 copies of Erebos are going to come in, the 2 Golgari Charms, the Hero's Downfall, and the 3 copies of Duress, removing some of the inefficient creature removal in the matchup. Again, pretty straightforward stuff.
Well, I know you weren't here to watch BBD play some speed magic against Chihui Yim in the very last round of the Invitational. Ended up resulting in a draw. However, I think we're going to watch that here in just a moment.
Todd played that game very quickly, too.
Yeah, he did.
In fact, most of the times where there was pausing and contemplation, it was on Bauer's side of the table, not on Todd's.
And he's never been known to play too slow. Todd does play at a pretty quick pace, and he's going to need to now as well. Because we're going to begin this game with about 10 minutes. And, if he's able to win, it'll probably end up in a draw. We'll see what does happen here. Again, our players, 703 in this open.
Pretty big.
You have to imagine X and 1 is what it's going to take.
Yeah, we are just short of 11 rounds.
Yeah.
And our opens are always well attended in Columbus and at Invitationals. So
Yeah.
700, no shocker.
Well, Todd Anderson will be on the play here in game number 2 against David Bauer. Game 1, a lot of fun to watch. Esper Control, unfortunately, or fortunately, depending on who you're rooting for, down a game to Black-Green Devotion.
That was great. I mean, Bauer opened on Thoughtseize, Underworld Connections on the play. Can't ask for a better draw. Todd was a little unfortunate to lose the Aetherling to one of those Thoughtseizes, because if that Aetherling's just, 30 or 40 cards down in Todd's deck, he's probably able to win that game. And in spite of David having all of the tools, Todd was able to keep it competitive.
And that's part of the reason that Aetherling is in a deck like this, is because you need a way to close out a game sometimes. You know, even if Todd finds Elixir, it's still a weird game.
Yes.
It's still a long game, you know, so again, he doesn't have Elixir in his deck, but there's no guarantee that if he did have Elixir, it would even win him the game there. But we do know that for sure that if Aetherling would have gotten in there, probably would have gotten the job done. But taken care of via Thoughtseize on turn number 2.
Most of these lists don't play in Elixir, and Todd's list is a little more proactive in terms of way to win. The third copy of Elspeth alongside a main deck Aetherling is he's committed to winning the game with damage.
Bauer going to send a mulligan back. You see Anderson a little bit impatient. He wants to get this battle underway. He's asking how much time is left, and we can see it in the middle, about 10:50. Can he win in 10:50? Oh, he can.
For sure. At his pace of play, and especially with Jace Memory Adept, that's a really fast win.
So Bauer will take a mulligan down to 6 here.
But Todd cannot be thrilled with this matchup.
Oh, it's tough.
It is tough.
It's really tough. Abrupt Decay plays a huge role in the matchup. And that's the reason people went that direction, because it is so good in the matchup.
I think a lot of people, it's just good card syndrome is the reason a lot of people moved to Abrupt Decay initially, but it is legitimately a difference maker in this matchup.
Bauer going to take a look at 6 cards here.
Jim Davis does not go ahead and build a planar cleansing control deck if Abrupt Decay is not floating around.
Couple of temples to begin. Anderson going to play a second temple. That card's going to stay on top, pass it back to Bauer.
And it looks like Todd's hand is without white mana.
That's what the temples are for, Patrick.
Sure. That's among other things, yes.
That's the easy part.
I guess Todd probably kept his hand on the strength of the Aetherling in terms of its capacity to allow him to win quickly.
Take a draw, bang.
The temples do help.
That's what they're there for, nothing else.
I'm not saying they don't help.
They're here to find white mana. Third temple here for Anderson. They let you keep some real stinkers. That's why I love them. Here's a pack rat. Anderson draws his card for the turn. There is your white mana. This is a Vanishing Light. Get that out of the way. Pass the turn back. Again, Todd is going to take some, I believe, unorthodox lines here, much like Brian did against Chihoy in round 16 of the Invitational, because guess what? Tick-tock goes the clock.
Todd's super conscious of the clock. I mean, you can see him asking the judge about it. And you can see him shortcutting here. He's not even bothering to really pick up his hand yet.
No.
He's just trying to get into his next turn.
There's an island.
Todd's the kind of person who's not going to play hand up a lot of the time.
Yep.
In scenarios like this. He's going to let you take down the notes and record, but he doesn't want Bauer to pick up his pen. So he's willing to just lay with his hand out like this.
Here's my grip. Let's keep it going. In for 3. Zoria's Charm. Put it on top. Leave up Dissolve. Oh, there that is. There's a Mutavault. I wonder if Bauer casts a spell here. He's got a Grey Merchant. That might be worth countering.
I can't imagine him casting just something. I guess this is a safe thing to play because it doesn't really matter very much.
Yeah, I was gonna say, that card's just bad enough.
Yeah.
That Todd has to actually think about countering it, and he just said, yeah, I'm gonna counter it. Forget it. Let's get this thing off the table. Even though he has like a Supreme Verdict and a Sphere in his hand.
If that card's cancel, I don't think Todd takes the bait there, but he needs to scry to try to find lands and get Aetherling into play with protection. So,
Life Bane's time of the draw here for Bauer. You see a Hero's Downfall over there. He's going to play a land. Erebos is at the ready here if he does want to deploy that. And that looks like that's what's going to happen. So, God of the Dead in the house. Anderson going to take a draw. This is a Jace. See if he's going to go up or down. There is a Mutavault out there after all.
I think he's going down. This man needs to find lands.
Yeah, he's going down. D-Spheres, Rev, Godless. That's not a land. I mean, that is a land. I don't think it wants to be paired with those cards because you want those cards too.
I think this is land against spells, even though that looks ugly, because you cannot give Todd a land and either one of these spells.
Oh, I agree with that. I think it's Godless Shrine on its own. I think for Todd, he can't be happy with the split here of I have to let a Rev and a Detention Sphere go potentially.
It's ugly. I mean, I know it looks bad, but I think you got to put the Godless Shrine by itself.
Todd keeps looking at that one card that we don't know about. If that's a land, I think you probably scoop up the other two. Okay. Godless to the bottom, and it's not a land, so he just wants the better cards.
Yeah.
Erebos activation here. Bauer going to pay 2 to get a new card. So 2 new cards coming here for David. Hero's Downfall, Lifebane Zombie is what he found for the activation plus the draw step. Erebos threatening to go live very soon here.
I would imagine Bauer wants to finish off Jace this turn.
Well, that thing's got to go. Here's a Lifebane Zombie. Let me see with that other card. Supreme Verdict, number 2. Does Bauer want to drop down another Lifebane Zombie here to turn on Erebos?
Probably not in the face of the Detention Sphere and Supreme Verdict. I think that's not a great use of resources.
No, Mutavault can get the job done just fine. Looks like we're going to get an activation.
High upside gamble here. If he finds a swamp, Overgrown Tune will do. That's a risky play by David, but it paid off.
That's a pretty good one. It's you see Todd ready to lose his chase.
Yeah,
he may have tipped him off. Who knows? But yeah, just kill it already. I don't care.
Yeah.
Let's get this show on the road. There's D-Spirit. Take care of Erebos. Pass turn back. No land there for Anderson. Bauer going to draw a card. Second Mutavault. Pretty good one. Got 5 and some change on the clock. In for 5 comes Bauer. There's a Mutavault. And just passing the turn back. Lifebane Zombie plus 2 Heroes Downfalls in the grip. Anderson draws a card. This is a Temple.
I get what's going on here, and it's fine for Todd to be rushing through his play, but Bauer is doing the correct thing also by just taking his time. I mean, he's not compelled to also speed up.
There is no rush for him.
Yeah.
You know, he's playing at a perfectly reasonable pace. Of course, Todd wants him to go quickly, but he doesn't have to.
Yeah, and Bauer is not, I don't think he's doing anything. He's just playing at the same pace he played last game.
Yep.
And in fact, he might just kill Todd next turn.
Yeah.
So who are we to judge?
Yeah, there's a third Mutavault. Push me along all you want. That's fine. I'll just kill you. There's the Plains. This is probably going to be a rev turn here.
Well, I don't think it can be an Aetherling turn.
No, certainly not.
And it can't be a Supreme Verdict turn, I don't think.
Yeah, now Todd's got to... Again, he's got to make decisions he doesn't want to make.
And I think that he loses to the Hero's Downfall in the hand if it's just Aetherling.
Yeah, if he plays Aetherling, he just loses. Straight up. He'll die from 3 Mutavaults and a Lifebane Zombie. And you see he's considering maybe casting a Verdict just to get the Lifebane off the table. Or is he better off just revving? He's better off, looks like, just revving. So Bauer's going to untap with 3 Mutavaults in play. Draws a card, looks like another Hero's Downfall to go along with the one he already had, and a Lifebane Zombie. Mutavaults are coming in. Revelation, I think, maybe being cast.
And I agree with this play from Todd here because he has to find a Pithing Needle.
That's the big one.
Then he can start stabilizing this board.
Yep. So a couple of cards coming. He doesn't die right now. Doesn't look like he found a needle, though. So he goes up to 12. He takes 9. He goes down to 3.
And that land, the bane of Esper players everywhere. Todd probably mostly has in his own list to block opposing Mutavaults.
Yeah. You see 5 lands over there. He was hoping to spike a Pithing Needle. He didn't find one. There's a Dark Betrayal. I mean, he's got a lot of good cards in his hand, but Mutavault, as you mentioned, is the bane of Esper's existence. He's going to show the hand and extend the other. David Bauer going to win this match over Todd Anderson, 2-0. Black-green Devotion taking down Esper Control, and you can see exactly why people splash green into this deck. Makes you great against Rev decks.
I think Todd easily wins game 1 against a deck that doesn't have Abrupt Decay.